Good evening. I'm not sure I believe you. Is it a good evening? Good evening. My heart is so full. I'm just overjoyed to be here live in Little Rock, Arkansas at Park Hill Christian Church. Can we put our hands together? We thank them for their hospitality. We're so grateful. The Great River region, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Is anybody here from Louisiana? Yay. Mississippi in the house? Okay. Arkansas is here? Fantastic. Friends across the United States and Canada, we are so thrilled to welcome you live online tonight for Church Narrative Project, Transformative Community Conference that begins with StoryHour. My name is Reverend Yvonne Gilmore, and I have the privilege of serving as Vice President and Chief of Staff in the Office of the General Minister and President. I bring you greetings on behalf of our General Minister and President, Terry Owens. I call him Prince Zach. Her grandson, her first one and only grandson, is turning 1. She's committed to being at all of these, and the only reason is because Prince Zach is having a birthday. So happy birthday to Zach. Friends, I'm so excited because there's another person from our office, the Reverend Leho Moses, who is in the house. Can we welcome her also? She directs the Proclamation Project, and she's going to come greet you in a second. But first, one of the pastors of this amazing church, Bobby Dreher, is going to come say hello, and then she's going to be followed by Leho Moses, is going to come up and say greetings.
Oh, we are so happy you are with us today at Park Hill Christian Church. And anything we can do to make you more comfortable, including temperature-wise, you let us know, because those thermometers go up and they go down. And that's anywhere you may be in the building today. Bathrooms in this way. I've always wanted to be a stewardess. To your right is another set of bathrooms. And if you need another set, I'll open a door to it. But save plenty of room for breakfast tomorrow. And enjoy and be present with God, for He is here. He is here.
We're so grateful for Park Hill and for the leadership of the pastors here. At home, I hope maybe you do a bathroom check so you make sure you're clear about where to go to the restrooms there. Friends, let's greet Reverend Leho Moses. She's going to tell us about the Proclamation Project that she directs.
Hi, friends. It's a delight to be with you here in the room, and hello to those of you who are watching online. As Yvonne said, it is my honor to serve in the Office of General Minister and President as the director of what we're calling the Proclamation Project, which is a new initiative of the OGMP. It's funded by a grant from the Lilly Endowment to support and equip disciples preachers. And we are doing a variety of things to help those of you who step into the pulpit week in and week out to do the hard, sometimes lonely, always challenging, often joyful work of proclaiming the good news. And so we are creating some resources, we are hosting some events, we're putting together some cohort groups so that you can connect with other preachers. And I would love to tell you more about that. I'm going to be around, for those of you who are in the room, I'll be around tonight and tomorrow and happy to talk about that. There's also some postcards back at the registration desk, so pick up one of those. If you aren't in the room, go to disciples.org/preaching and you'll hear about some of the things that we're working on that are coming up. You can also there sign up for our monthly email, which is called For the Messengers. And it's a lovely sort of curated piece that comes out every month with an article from a disciple scholar who helps us reflect on the task and the craft of preaching, and then a first-person story from a preacher about what the preaching life is like. So, and then some links to resources and other ideas and such too. So I hope you'll sign up for that. So it's disciples.org/preaching. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lee. Friends, will you help me welcome, you know her really well because she loves and cares for and shepherds you. She's a force and has been a force in multiple manifestations of the church for quite some time. My sister, the Reverend Dr. Nadine Burton, can you just show her so much love as she comes?
Good evening, church. We are so excited to see all of you here on this evening. We have been anticipating these next 24 hours together because we know that God is here. God has been with us in all the plans as we fumbled some things and recovered, amen, those who know about football. But we are here. And we know that the Spirit of God is here with us. I am so excited for our guests who are here with us on tonight. The Reverend Dr. David Anderson Hooker, he is here with us tonight. Kimberly Broadnax from Cleveland, Ohio is with us. The Reverend Dr. Alan Hilton from Austin, Texas is with us. And of course, my own sister, Reverend Yvonne Gilmore, who is spearheading all of this. And so I want you to sit back, relax, open your hearts and minds to how the Spirit will speak to us on this evening. God bless you.
So friends, we have greeted, you've been greeted by folks of honor and responsibility. We're going to move into our story hour, right? And this is the beginning of our transformative community conference. And so we, as a part of our conferencing, right, these storytellers have worked with a coach. They've taken time over several weeks, right, to think deeply and to think about their phrasing. They've practiced what they're going to do and be sharing tonight. And some of them, I'm aware, don't take the microphone very often. And so I want to be aware and to practice. So I have two ground rules. One, and you can't say no. I know, usually you can. In order for this to be as powerful as it can be, I need you to promise me whatever your day was like. Maybe you had a rough week. Certainly things are dramatic, horrific all over the world. But right here, right now, can you be present? Can you be present fully to each other, to the Spirit, to these storytellers? So with a resounding, if it's all right, we're going to pledge to be present. Would you just say yes real loud? Yes. You got it. Amen. Amen. And so it is. And so it is. The second rule is that what I want you to do is when I'm going to say each person's name, and I'll tell you the church they come from, perhaps something about them. But when I say their name, right, they're going to get up from their seat because everybody's sitting in a different place. They didn't get up from their seat, and so I want you to clap like we do, politely in church. You know how to do that. But then, when they get to the microphone, I want you to, you're clapping politely in church. And I want you to clap, right, as if you like Taylor Swift, imagine, like she said, if you like Beyonce, like, if you like the Rolling, whatever your like favorite band was that person, Jesus himself, right, herself is in the room, like just lose your mind, okay? So, but I'm so serious. This is very serious. So we're gonna practice, okay? So I'm gonna say my name, and I'm gonna go down there, and I want you to clap. But then when I get up here, I just want to make sure that we all got the lesson, okay? So our next storyteller is Yvonne Gilmore. Okay. You're a quick study. I can see you've mastered the method, but we also need to keep this same energy, right? You got 7 storytellers. I need you don't get so tired during the second half, you don't give them the same encouragement. what is serious, right? The vulnerability, the courage, the truth-telling, they're going to give you a gift. So just want to make sure, right, we're going to meet them. We're going to give them a gift. All right? Your first storyteller is Patricia Ball. She's a member of Bethel Christian Church in North Carrollton, Mississippi. Put your hands together.
Good evening, everyone. This is a great opportunity to be standing here before you to tell you my story. The name of my story is My Favorite Place to Go. The news of the all-women retreat spread like wildfire in the middle of May. Every year since I was 5 years old, the women of the Great River region have come together to spend quality time with each other. This is the time that I call my favorite place. Why? You see, I'm glad you asked. Because I have always wondered why my father never went with us, you see. This was a women retreat. And you see, I was only 5 years old when I went on my first women retreat with my mom. I can remember being so excited to be able to go with my mom. Unlike my other sisters who really didn't care much about it, I can remember being the child sitting all in this, let me start over. I can remember being a child among all these great women like Dr. Ann Pickett Parker and Noita Roberts Spencer. Oh, they were such great women. They gave me extra treats and they loved on me. Oh, how I love being at the retreat. And before we even left home, I was sitting in a rocking chair on the porch watching my mama pack flowers and candles and pictures. And as we got ready to go on this weekend treat, see, my mom, she did the memorial service at the retreat. You see, I can remember her yelling at me, "Trisha, hurry up and come out this house. We can't be late." And and on the way there, we talked about everything, like what was going on with me in life and what was going on with me in school. And I can remember my mama teaching me Bible stories and songs like, "Oh, Lord, I want you to help me." Or like songs like, "We come this far by faith." You know, oh, I loved going to the retreat with my mom. You know, I really love those moments where my mom and I felt like friends. We stopped at all these stores because, see, where I come from, there's not a lot of stores, and we would look for these things that, you know, was new, and we would have so much time, so much fun together. And once we finally got to the retreat, you know, I felt the peace among these great women. And I continued to go back year after year. And now I've turned 16. And the one place I love to go so much, I was torn because I wanted to go to a party with my friends. But I can remember my mom saying, "This is retreat weekend, Trisha, and we always go together." So of course I couldn't let my mom down, so I went anyway. And to my surprise, the great women had organized a little surprise party for me. And I had never felt so happy and loved by these great women. Year after year, I went to the retreat. So many years have passed, and now I'm grown. And I watch my own daughter walk down these same aisles that I walked down. And I watch my own daughter fellowship and help and praise at the retreat that I once followed my mom to. It brings me great joy to see my daughter walk down the aisle with baskets that the great women donate to charity. But let me tell you about these baskets now. You know, these baskets are from the disciple women. They make these baskets. These are beautiful baskets that they make and they donate to an auction for charity. And see, I remember I was bidding on a basket for my daughter, right? And I really wanted that basket. But Dr. Nadine Burt wanted it. But wait a minute, let me tell you though. She found out that I wanted that basket for my daughter Autumn, and she gave that basket to my daughter. And I wanted, and that is what these great women have shown me, and the legacy will continue. Thank you.
Patricia Ball, we're telling true stories live. We're telling aha moments. I thought aha when I discovered magnetic name tags. For those at home, actually, I've never experienced this before, but we have magnetic name tags, Christian Church Disciples of Christ. It's incredible. I thought aha when I recently learned that starfish really do have a head. Essentially, its whole top side is its head because the genes responsible for head development are found in that part of its body. This is incredible. I don't even know that I understand what I just read. And I mean that sincerely. Friends, your next storyteller, she comes from First Christian Church in Sulphur, Louisiana. She loves rescue dogs and pets and birds. Put your hands together for your next storyteller, Kim Ardoin.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into it. I am inviting y'all to come along with me on a family camping trip. We were on a family camping trip, my husband, 3 kids, and me. We traveled with a pop-up camper, a big 4-door work truck, and everything we needed for a week of adventure in the Great Smoky Mountains. I had worked for months planning this trip. I wanted everything to be perfect, and so far everything had gone quite well. But you know what they say, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. So after a week in the woods, my middle child was ready to go home. He was a gamer kid, and he was missing his computer. I firmly told him, we are not leaving today. We're leaving tomorrow, so just chill out, and you can make it one more day. And then my husband took off on a mountain bike ride through the trails in the mountains behind our campsite, and then me, my daughter, and my other son joined a hayride through the campground. So my middle son stayed at the campsite to kind of pout a little bit. So while we were gone, the campground host visited our campsite. He told my son that according to his records, we were due to check out today. And my son quickly told him, oh no sir, my mama said we are not leaving today. And he said, oh, I have a feeling you are. And so about that time, my other kids and I walked up, and I said, can I help you? And he said, are you Kim Ardoin? And before I could even say yes, he said, my records show you're supposed to be vacating this campsite at 2 o'clock today. And I just, all of a sudden, I'm sure my eyes popped out of my head, and my stomach started churning, and my heart was racing, and I said, we're leaving tomorrow. And he said, no ma'am, you're leaving today at 2 o'clock. And I looked at my watch, and it was 12:45. I started to panic. I looked around, I saw my kids' faces. They were confused and full of fear, and I said, it's okay, we're going to be all right, we're going to be all right. And then I told the man, I have to wait until my husband gets back because he's real persnickety about how we pack this stuff up. And the man said, oh, no, ma'am. He said, we have people that will come and help you pack. And I was terrified. So if you've ever camped in a pop-up camper, there's a box on 2 wheels, and everything has to fit in that box below where you slide the beds in from both sides. And then you have to crank the roof down. So everything has to go in its place, and it's a very strenuous test of organizational skills and patience. And that's why my husband did it half the time. He made us leave, and he did it because he had to do it his way. Well, when he said he was going to send people to help me pack, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how that's going to work. But about that time, my husband rides up on his, no, skip ahead to an hour. My husband rides up on his bike, he looks around, he sees the lights that were hanging from the trees, the hammocks that were hanging from tree trunk to tree trunk, and the clotheslines that were full of beach towels and wet bathing suits were all gone, and everything was stuffed in the pop-up camper, and the people, strangers, were cranking it down. And he looks around, and he looks at me, and he kind of, from what I remember, he looked like Ricky Ricardo when he came in and found Lucy doing something she wasn't supposed to do. His eyes were popping out, the vein was coming out in his neck, and he was like, what the heck is going on here? And I said, I'll explain later. So we got in our truck, hooked up the camper, and rode off. While we rode off, I tried to explain that I had the dates mixed up. We had just been evicted from our campsite, and it was all my fault. So to this day, I'm still not sure what happened. I had planned everything to the T like I thought. This was in the year 2000, and internet existed, but I wasn't using it yet. So I had done everything by phone, and I evidently made a big mistake booking the dates. So another fact I haven't mentioned yet is that it was July 3rd. We got evicted on July 3rd, and we had no place to stay. Tomorrow is July 4th, and we were 16 hours from home. So we were in quite the predicament. My husband again looked at me and said, what now? And I said, oh, we'll be fine. Like I said, like any self-respecting, adventure-loving mother, I pretended to be in control and quickly began to improvise. I said, we've got 5 hours of daylight. We got plenty of time to drive around, explore, find the perfect place to spend the night. We'll be fine. Well, right about that time, the kids realized that tomorrow was 4th of July and we didn't have a watermelon. So like, Mama, we gotta have a watermelon for 4th of July. I mean, that's what we do. And I was like, we don't have a watermelon, but we'll find one. There's some roadside stands, we'll find one. Well, for miles and miles, we stopped at every roadside fruit stand. Nobody had a watermelon. Everybody was sold out. So when they weren't hollering about a watermelon, they kept asking me, Mom, where are we going to sleep tonight? Mom, why did those people kick us out? Mom, what did you do? And I was like trying to stay calm, and I was trying to keep my inner voices from coming out straight out of my mouth. And I said, there was a mix-up with the dates, not a big deal, we're fine, we just had to leave. So then we started stopping at several campgrounds looking for a place to stay. But everywhere we went, they said, no vacancy, we're full, no vacancy, no place for you here. So we were like, okay, so we just kept getting back in the car and in the truck and kept going. And by that time, the kids had learned what the words no vacancy meant because they didn't know those words before. And so we were starting to feel like Mary and Joseph on the first Christmas Eve because it started to get dark and then it started to rain and everybody was tired and hungry. So of course, everybody looks at Mom. I said, we'll stop and we'll get some burgers and we'll figure this out. So we got some hamburgers and we ate in the dim light of the truck cab because we had nowhere else to go. And all of a sudden, we spotted a red vacancy sign flashing across the street in a little tiny hotel. So we drove across the street, we ran in the office, and we were met by the sweetest elderly couple, and they said, "Oh, yes, we have one room left." And we were like, "Oh, my God, that's great." And then she said, "Would your kids like to turn off the vacancy sign?" And we said, "Yes." And my kids are all almost 40 now, and they still remember the thrill of turning off that vacancy sign. We had finally found shelter. We couldn't get to our suitcases because they were stuffed into the pop-up camper, so we had no clothes. The only thing we had was toothbrushes and toothpaste that I had in my big purse. So we cleaned up the best we could, we brushed our teeth, and we slept in our clothes, and that was traumatic for the kids too. But early the next morning, we got up and we got back on the road. We drove until we came to a campground somewhere around Atlanta, and they actually had room for us, so we were so excited. But now the kids were still worried about watermelon, and now they were asking for fireworks. And we didn't have either one of those things, and we had no way of providing them. So they were at an age where they were old enough to understand reality, but still young enough to think that mom and dad could provide everything they needed. Well, unfortunately, this was one time when we couldn't provide what they needed. As soon as we parked the rig, we started cranking it up, and we were ready to start unpacking, and the kids were like, "I'm bored, I'm hungry." And I was like, y'all either help us unpack or go take a walk and burn off some energy. So they all three took off. So my husband and I were sorting through all the mess, the wet bathing suits, the stuff that was everywhere. And then all of a sudden we hear our kids come running towards us with sounds, vocal sounds that sounded like joy. And we were like, wonder what that's about. They ran up to us, all three talking at once, and they said, "We just met some really nice old people in a big fancy camper 2 doors down. They have a giant watermelon, and they want us to help them eat it." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome." So we dropped everything we were doing, we followed the kids, and soon we were in the presence of the sweetest, most precious silver-haired couple, which we are now, and they were inviting us. She had a picnic table with a red checkered tablecloth on it and a big giant watermelon and red paper plates, and it was just perfect. And the whole scene was just so beautiful. I could almost hear angels singing hallelujah in the background. I mean, it was like, this is awesome. And there was our three kids sitting there at the picnic table, just slurping up that sweet, juicy watermelon, and they had sticky fingers and smiling faces, and it was just joy, joy, joy. And as we were finishing up our miraculous watermelon treat, the couple that was hosting us said, "Now, y'all just have about 30 minutes to go back to your camper, get your lawn chairs and some blankets, and meet us down by the lake for the fireworks show." Well, the kids just thought, this is heaven on earth. We have fireworks now. So we went and got all our things, and as we were sitting beside the lake, and I looked down at the kids on the blankets watching the fireworks, they were talking to each other, and then they looked up at me and they said, "This is the best 4th of July ever." And it was.
One more time for Kim Ardwin. I thought, aha, when my sister had surgery for pancreatic and liver cancer, and everything went well. God works miracles. I thought, aha, when my thoughts, desires, and fear followed me to the other side of the world. Aha. Friends, your next storyteller is a member of Park Hill Christian Church here in North Little Rock, Arkansas. He loves to kayak, Put your hands together for David Beach Jr.
That would help. As she said, I'm David Beach Jr. I'm a fourth-generation disciple. My great-grandma was a member of First Christian Church, North Little Rock. My grandma was also, and she was the organist. My parents joined Park Hill Church in 1962. I was born in February of '63. I was on the cradle roll. I've been a member ever since. I'm sure I was much smaller back then. I started cleaning the church with my dad when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I was hired as custodian when I was about 14 years old. I worked as the custodian until I was 27. I was hired at Second Presbyterian Church in Little Rock when I was 31 years old. And now, 29 years later, I'm the facilities manager. I've always been the behind-the-scenes person for most of my life. I try my best to make sure everything works from behind the scenes. So, being up here is really, really uncomfortable for me. My story, March 31st of this year, a typical Friday. I was wearing my blue tie-dye shirt. My coworker guy said, "Let's go to lunch." I said, "It's about to storm. You think we'll get wet?" He said, "No, we're good." We went to the Chinese buffet about a mile away. We walked in the restaurant, got our food, started eating. Within minutes, the tornado sirens started going off. Guy's phone started as well. I slapped my pockets. I said, "Well, I guess I left my phone at work." We finished eating. We left. We made it to the truck. It was raining really hard. We were driving back to work, and Guy asked, "Do you mind if I stop at Kroger?" I said, "Sure." He pulled into Kroger and parked. I said, "No, back up and do a U-turn so I can see the tornado if it's coming." So he did 2 spaces further away from Kroger. I said, "Okay, go for it." He left. I stayed in the truck. The sirens have stopped and started again since lunch. They're still going. I decided to turn on the truck radio since I didn't have my phone. The voice on the radio was live and driving and said, "I see it. It is on the ground, going over 10 Fitness." Well, I thought to myself, there's a lot of 10 Fitnesses. No big deal. Then I realized there was a 10 Fitness just across the freeway from me. I looked up, and there it was. As big and as wide and as far up as I could see, coming right at me. I opened the truck door. I got my trusty cane out, and I got one foot out, and I looked at Kroger door about 400 foot away, and I said, "Nope, I'm not gonna make it." I got back in the truck. I shut the door. The wind was bad. The truck was shaking. I said, "God, please protect me." I was in the passenger seat. Hold on, I missed something. I couldn't see anything. A few seconds, something broke out the driver's window. A few seconds later, something broke out the back passenger window. They both just shattered and fell in the seat. I saw the grocery cart holder on that side of the truck fold up and land under the truck. Then a few seconds later, something smashed the front windshield. I said, "Lord, please keep my window safe." I was looking out the driver's door window, and out of the corner of my right eye, I saw something huge crash to the ground. It was about 3 foot from the passenger side of the truck. It was the 35-foot tall, 6-foot square Simmons Bank sign. It had 6-inch beams on each corner. It landed where Guy first parked the truck. I couldn't believe it. God kept me safe. I felt like 10 minutes had passed. I thought about Guy inside. I didn't know if he was okay or not. I knew Kroger wouldn't let him out until it was safe. I looked at Kroger. There were trees and all kinds of damage. There was a truck up almost in the entrance. As he walked out, he's videoing. He can't see me yet. He finally sees me and says, "You all right, Junior?" I said, "Yes." I can't believe it. I still don't believe it. I know that God was with both of us. We survived an F3 tornado. Oh, by the way, Guy's just not my coworker. He's also my best friend for about 40 years. He's also my brother-in-law. Thank you, God, for keeping me safe in a Tacoma pickup truck.
David Beach Jr., one more time. Yeah. I thought, aha, when as a regional elder, it's my privilege, responsibility, and joy to pray for the pastors in my area. I was blindsided and humbled then when every single one of the pastors in my shepherding group checked on me, my family, and our church when Hurricane Laura and then Hurricane Delta hit our community. Aha. Friends, your next storyteller is associate pastor at Mount Sinai Christian Church in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Her grandchildren bring her joy. Put your hands together for our next storyteller, Miss Sarah, Reverend Sarah Rudolph Pollard.
Does this light come on?
There you go.
Ooh, I made that awful small and awful close together. Well,
Here, I'm going to move this so we can hear you.
oh, y'all can't hear me loud as I am? Okay.
What else can I do?
Thank you. Appreciate you. Okay. I remember being at Stephen Foster Elementary School and deciding that I was not smart. I can picture being in the cafeteria with what at that time seemed to be huge windows. I do not know why I even have such a thought as that at such a young age. I was somewhere between first and third grade. I do not remember anyone telling me that I was not smart, nor do I remember anyone telling me that I was smart. Moving forward, I couldn't get the hang of those darn multiplication tables. I just couldn't get it. Now here's the secret, y'all can't tell nobody this, right? I never learned all of them. I never learned all of them. Why, you might ask? Now I can remember being at Cane Run Elementary School, and this was in the 70s, and thinking, okay, we have calculators now, so there's no need to learn them. So I didn't. Now, my brother Mark was an intelligent child. His teachers always talked about how smart he was. And he even got to go to the Brown School. I don't know why the Brown School was so unique, but he went and I didn't. As I think back, I remember helping Mark learn to spell or learn either to spell or write his middle name, Anthony. But he was the smart one, right? Okay. But there are a lot of things that I remember from my childhood. Some of them cannot be true. Here's my favorite untrue memory. There is no way in this world that it can be valid, but I remember it, okay? In the late 60s and early 70s, we lived at Fort Knox, Kentucky. That's a military installation. It's that place where, all the gold is stored at, that they say. And my father was, we were stationed there, okay? And then I remember, oh Lord, I lost my spot now, I'm sorry. Fort Knox, in the late 60s, okay, we lived at Fort Knox on the military installation, okay, place where I'll go. I remember Mark Anthony, and I had these huge turtles that we could ride on. I remember these turtles. I can see these turtles just like I can see you, okay? They were named Hansel and Gretel. Without going into scientific impossibilities, no, we didn't have rideable turtles, okay? Anyway, I digress. The little girl decided that she was not competent and didn't need to learn her timetables because, again, she could use a calculator instead. So going through school, I always did just enough to get by and graduate. With no plans, really, after I graduated, I went to college. I went to Western Kentucky University. In my first year of college, I went because it was expected that I go. Almost all of the other kids that I went to school with, everybody's getting ready to after that, their senior year, they're getting ready to go off to college, right? So, I might as well go too, okay? So I went, again, because it was expected that I would go. Almost all of the other kids went to college, so why not? My father was a 100% disabled veteran and had it fixed where my brother, Mark Anthony, and I could go to any school, any Kentucky state-funded school for free. So why not? I was enrolled at Western Kentucky University for one school year. I left Western with a 0.9 grade point average. I married a soldier. Truth be told, what I wanted to be was a military wife. That is what my mom was, and it seemed to be okay with me. As life moved along, I moved to Germany with my military husband, had a kid, and, life just happens, and, a few other things happen. So with life going on, I never officially quit school. There was something in me that would say, it's time to go back to school. I'd go back, fail some classes, pass some, retake those that I had failed. I believe I knew how important it was to get a degree. I kept going. At Western, on paper, my major was speech and theater, but my actual major was hanging out and partying, and I did really good. I was really, really good at that. Eventually, I ended up at the University of Louisville and declared my major as criminal justice, in criminal justice. Dr. Price Foster, was my professor in several of many, juvenile justice classes. Dr. Foster is the first person that I can remember telling me that I was smart. I'll never forget that. I'll never let that go. I hadn't expected this. Then there was Jason Snyder. And Jason, he taught our criminal law class. After the semester, he took 3 of us to lunch. And I don't have the rest of my paper right. Wait a minute. Okay. He took 3 of us to lunch and pleaded with us to go to law school. He had given us our final. And in law school, when you take your final, is 1 test over the whole semester. We had a 30-page test. I still have that test at home. Yeah, I still have it. Anyway, he was ready to give each one of us his highest personal recommendation for us to get into law school. Neither of us went. In 2004, after going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, I graduated from the University of Louisville with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. In 2007, I graduated with my master's in criminal justice at U of L. In 2019, I graduated with a master's of arts in social justice from Phillips Theological Seminary. In 2021, I received a graduate certificate from the University of Kentucky in diversity and inclusion. I don't know why I always gloss over this particular part, as if it's not as important. In 1987, I got my associate degree in general studies, associate of arts degree. To God be the glory. It's not about being smart. It's about perseverance. As a matter of fact, what is being smart? I still don't know all of my times tables.
Reverend Sarah Rudolph Pollard. Wow. I thought, aha, when I saw that the wall came down between a mother and her son. Aha moments. True stories change lives. We're telling true stories. Eureka moments, aha moments. Friends, your next storyteller is the first minister in his family. He is the senior minister of First Christian Church in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Put your hands together for your next storyteller, the Reverend Dr. Ryan Pfeiffer.
Y'all need to teach this to my folks back in Fayetteville. It was the last semester of my junior year in high school. That year was a mile marker in my life. My best friend had left the country as a foreign exchange student in Europe. My girlfriend had broken up with me. And I, the person who was supposed to be a doctor, was experiencing a call to ministry. See, this whole discerning a call to ministry thing was new to me because I was supposed to be a doctor from the time I was a small child. Church was very important to me and to my family, but being a minister? I was at church camp and feeling as though my life was falling apart. It was really late at night, and I was praying for some guidance as to what I should do and how I should do it. And not long after that experience, I found myself in my minister's office explaining that I was no longer sure about being a doctor, but what would ministry look like? This was foreign territory to me, as nobody on either side of my family tree has ever been a minister before. And I was pretty sure that my minister was going to look me in the eye and laugh at me and say, "Keep thinking about another career." To my surprise, he looked at me and said, I've known for most of your life that you were called to be a minister. Really? Really? Back to my last semester of my junior year. I also was very active and played on the varsity tennis team for my high school. Spent many hours on those tennis courts trying to get better at that sport. But it offered up for me time to think about the big life events that I was undergoing at that point. And most of those hours playing tennis were with a very good friend of mine by the name of Anil Patel. He was genuine and he was funny. We spent so much time laughing at ourselves. And Anil was always good to get me to laugh when I was taking myself far too seriously. Anil and his father traveled to India over spring break that year. You see, they were Hindu, and they were going over there for a pilgrimage. Upon their return back to the United States, Anil became ill. Within a week's time, he slipped into a coma, and he was dead. The news of his death was a punch in the gut to me. His death was just one more emotional event in a heavy year of my life. The next day at school, our tennis coach, mine and Anil's tennis coach, was walking down the hallway while we were between classes at our lockers. And he was saying, "You know, it's a real tragedy that Anil is burning in hell right now. If only he would have gotten his life together, this wouldn't be such a tragedy." That moment is forever frozen in my mind. Are you kidding me? How can those words fall off of your tongue so easily? Anil was one of your students. He was my friend, and he was a child of God. Now, one might imagine that their coach would be there to console and offer a listening ear during tragic times. Instead, I became angry that my coach was somewhat smug with his judgmental comments. How does anybody say such a thing? Especially the fact that my coach was a good Christian man. Maybe I thought he had endured a lot of loss in his own life, and he was at the point of becoming cynical about it all. But for me, this death was personal. And in my mind, people of faith were caring and compassionate, for crying out loud. And my coach's approach disturbed me. Is this what followers of God say? Is this what Jesus would have us do? Do I want to engage my life to ministry if this is what it's going to look like? My theological understanding is very different than that. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to run out of the building. Anil was 17 years old. I was 17 years old. Something this awful just doesn't happen at this stage of life. There I was grappling with giving my life to serving in ministry. But if Christians behaved the way that my coach did, I was sure I needed to rethink this call. I remember in my head thinking and talking to God, saying, if this is what you called me to be a part of, I want no part of it. And it's okay if you dialed the wrong number. We can get the operator back on the line. God, are you sure you meant me? It's fine if you didn't mean to ask me. No harm, no foul. We can both erase this thought and we can move forward with our lives. 17, this was a lot for me to process. Thinking on it now, at 50, it's a lot to process. What kind of God would allow a person to be taken away from this earth at such a young age? Did I want to be associated with God who snatches away some people and allows others to judge those who have died? The 17-year-old me was saying, no, I don't want to be a part of something that makes a mockery of a precious life. After all, God created all living things, not just some If this is a game, I want no part of it. And I don't believe that God desires things to be this way. And it's not the person that I was created to be unless God made a mistake this time. Soul searching is hard work. I had spoken with several ministers who had assured me that my call to ministry was real. And I came to realize that God called me to show others that life is a gift and that we are important because we are all created by the same God. Maybe, just maybe, my calling could help bridge the gap for people. The ministry God called me to do would potentially include opportunities to share love and hope with those who suffer, and we all suffer. I could strive to show others what healing love of God looks like. Maybe, just maybe, God created me to be exactly who I am, and that the call to ministry was exactly what I was supposed to do. At 17, I wrestled with an understanding of how God could work through me. And today, at 50, I pray that God can continue to work through me, even though I may not always get it exactly right. I wonder what it would have been like today if things would have been different when I was 17. Today, there's still suffering and there's loss. There are hard goodbyes and there are tears shed. And there are countless opportunities for us to share God's love with a hurting and suffering world. You see, the words we say matter. They matter during times of loss and times of sorrow. They matter in times of celebration and of joy. And they matter, for crying out loud, when we say them to someone who is 17 and suffering and trying to make sense of this world. And they matter when we say them to anyone who is wrestling with an understanding of what God's presence looks like in their life.
Reverend Dr. Ryan Pfeiffer. Are there any other prompts? If you filled it out at your table, Reverend Leho Moses will come get it from you if you have an extra one there. Coming around. We have two more incredible storytellers for you. Don't get tired yet. I thought, aha, when I realized that God works through people. Our next storyteller, she is an associate regional minister, Indianola Christian Church in Mississippi, Reverend Dr. Nerlene Anderson.
Thank you all so much. Like I was already nervous when I came up here, but I'm going to try not to be nervous through this. But there is a quote that I read over the last couple of weeks that kind of hit me as I was developing the story narrative, and I had so many different things that were going on, and Reverend Lindsay helped me work it through, and finally I narrowed it down to a part of my life, like not my whole life, but part of my life. Pieces of my life, story plots of my life. But the quote is by Charles Morgan, and it says, "As knowledge increases, wonder deepens. The more I know about God, the more wonder I experience." And so it really hit me, and I thought, you know what, that is so true, God, because as I know more now, I still wonder. I wonder even more now about him, you know? But it's just a wonderful experience. God is unending, always present, never lacking, always faithful, all-encompassing, my I am. This story that I share gets to the core of who God is to me, what he really means to me in my heart. I'm drawn to worship him in my ways, in my words, and even in my wonder. My wonder is activated when I rise early in the mornings. I love my mornings. Harvey gets up at 4, I get up at 5. He's up at 4, I'm up at 5. So if I get up at like 4:30, I'll say I got 29 more minutes to sleep before my alarm goes off at 5 o'clock. So I'll stay there and get back in the bed. But my wonder is activated early in the morning. So when I get up and I go to the kitchen to prepare our breakfast and our lunch, and I listen to the birds outside, and I open the blinds at the back window, and I see the leaves falling down now. And I think to myself, you know, God, it is just wonderful. As those dead leaves are falling, they're going to give life in the future. And so I wonder about that as he just cycles things through, how amazing he is. And then I think about a wonder moment in my life when I was about 4 years old. I was a kid just running around out in the front yard like kids do, not paying attention to anything. And the last thing I remembered before everything went black was I was running smack dab into the fender of a Cadillac car in my front yard. And I went face head on into that fender, and I fell backwards. That was it. And then I opened my eyes, and there the doctor was. We were at the hospital. At the time, I didn't realize it, but not only was God there, but death was there. And that's frightening now. As a 59-year-old, I think about it, how close death was when I was 4 years old. But I didn't know that then. But God was there, and he took care of me. So coming out of that experience, I fast forward into another phase of my life as I'm thinking about how God works in it. At a much later time, I probably was about 10 years old. And so my family lived in the country. We had a barn, we had pigs and cows, gardens. It was just wonderful. In the springtime, when my dad would be preparing the soil for summertime planting, I would walk out in the garden barefoot. I don't know what my dad did to that dirt. It was like powder under my feet. He did something, but it was just such a great feeling. And I'd walk around in that dirt and just kind of play out there in the peanut patch. He loved peanuts. And he would warn me, all right now, you be careful out there because there's snakes out there on those vines. And I just go on like a kid does. So this particular day, I followed my mother out to the barn and kicking some old pieces of rotten wood, again, like 10-year-olds do, nothing on my mind. And I kick over this big piece of rotten wood, and right underneath was this cottonmouth moccasin, coiled. I mean, as a 10-year-old, he looked about that big. And my mom looked at me and she said, "Don't move." And I just froze, because I knew if I moved at all, he was going to get me. And so she walked up with the hoe and she hit it. She chopped his tail off and he slid away really quick. And I just felt like, why did he not bite me? You know, why did I not get bitten by that snake? And she just grabbed me in her arms, and blank, there's a big space of time where I don't know what happened after that. It was like that moment just kind of took me. And then as I think about it again, I say, Lord, why didn't it get me? Because this was in the springtime, of course, when that happened. And the people I said, you know, it's springtime, you know, those snakes are mating. They really can't see. They got theirs in this state. But I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I scared him. But he didn't bite me, and that reminded me that God was there. But death was there too. And when I move into another phase, I say, some years later, God's presence was evident. I would always feel him there, not quite knowing what it was, because as a kid, you're growing up, you don't really notice that, but you know something's there. So I was feeling this presence all the time. There was a time when I was driving my car. Now I'm an adult now, probably in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, coming from work. And I'm getting ready to turn left to my turn. My car's in motion. My light was there. I'm following the driving rules. And there's another car coming straight at me, but was taking a side lane around cars to get through a red light. And I couldn't stop. So I knew this was it. Okay, you know, I had a lot of encounters, and I said, this is it. This is the day. And my car's just going on left. And y'all, I felt this presence. It pressed my chest and pressed me into the seat of the car. And my car was moving in slow motion. I promise you, it was like when God held the day for Joshua. I mean, at that moment, that's how I felt. It was like in slow motion, giving the other driver time to get through the light. The red light, by the way, from his side. God was there. And it was just so amazing to me after the fact of what he had done, how he rescued me. And he's done this over and over and over again in my life, walking me through to where I am now, in ministry where I am, and sharing these stories with people. But it was just, I thought, God, all I can do is say thank you for saving me, for rescuing me. Recently, I had another wonder moment, and of course, I've had people, when I was growing up, of course, these wonder moments were, I was blamed for daydreaming. They said I daydreamed a lot. But at that time, I'm with God, and it's an unusual thing when people see me there. They say, oh, you're not paying attention to me. Oh, you're not thinking. I'm thinking, but I'm listening, because God has things to say to me. Recently, while in one of my wonder moments, I reflected on a time when I was, well, actually, not a time. I had several incidents that have happened over the last several weeks. I've had friends who have lost loved ones. Those things have happened. A good friend of mine at work, I got a call last Friday, well, actually it was Saturday, that her husband had died. And she said, Nerlene, I went to sleep. She said, we did our usual routine. She said, I went home after work. We had dinner, played with our grandkids. We talked. We did our usual things. She said, and we went to bed like we always do. She said, and I got up Saturday morning. She said, I said, babe, it's time to get up. She said, he wouldn't answer her. And she said, I called him. She said, babe, it's time to get up. She said he wouldn't answer. So she asked her neighbor, sent for the neighbor next door to come. She said, I need you to come and wake him up. She said, he won't wake up for me. And she said, I didn't know what to do. She said, I was just in shock. She said, my neighbor couldn't get him awoke. And she said, I just don't know what to do. What am I going to do? And y'all all know it is very hard at a time when someone loses someone. What do you say? So I just shared that God was there, as he had been for me all those times, and those experiences I had had near death, that God was there. And even though she felt the loss that she felt, it wasn't as bad as she thought it was. But at the same time, I didn't share that with her, but I shared with her after the fact. I said, look, this is what's going to happen. God's going to work us through this experience, and we're going to work it through together. And she just said, okay, I'll give you a call when I get better. So I'm still waiting for her to get better. I know it won't be better right now, but we're going to work it through. But then my most, I think, challenging thing I've just experienced for my own personal experience has been a few weeks ago. I had to go to the doctor. Now, I went for one thing, but you know how you go to the doctor for one thing and you find out something else? You're not expecting that. So I went for one thing, and while I'm there, and I gave the doctor my list of ailments, complaints, or whatnot, and he asked, he said, do you have trouble swallowing? And I said, well, no, I haven't felt that. And he said, so he put his hand on my neck. He said, I'll tell you what, I need you to go do some tests. So I said, okay. So I walked across the street to the hospital. They did some tests, and in the test of my thyroid, they found a mass. So the doctor says, he says, I tell you what, we're gonna put in an order for you, and we're gonna send you down so they can do the dye. And I said, okay. I said, but I had told him, I said, I really want to talk to my real doctor first, my own doctor. And so after talking to them about that experience, he said, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do the test for you. But as I'm thinking through this experience, I say, Lord, I don't have my mom anymore to save me from a snake. I didn't have my dad anymore to protect my back in the backyard out there when I'm walking around through the peanut patch. I don't have my siblings anymore to protect me from the bullies, because there are a lot of bullies out there. I said, but I do have God, and I have Harvey. God and Harvey are there. They've been there through all of those experiences in my latter life, and even in my earlier life, God has been there. So what do I do now? The only thing I can do is to continue to trust and stand because God is able. He's proven to me what he can do when I didn't know. And now that I know, I really know that I know, and I am still in wonder about what God can do. To close, what I learned in my life is that God is a providential God for all of those who trust him, and even for those who don't trust him yet. But he's a providential God. I'm always left in a state of wonder. I say to myself, Nerline, he's got this battle, just like he's had all the other ones. I am blessed with friends and family and faith that will help me ride this wave. What's there to do now? Simply stand and trust. He is unending, always present, never lacking, always faithful, all-encompassing. He is my I am, and I will yet trust him. I am constantly assured with wonder that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Amen.
Reverend Dr. Nerline Anderson. I thought, aha, there's deep theology in this story. Our 4-year-old had had a particularly bad day. He'd been in and out of trouble all day. When asked why he was being so bad, he replied, I guess that's just how God made me. I thought, aha, after my second open heart surgery in Houston, I was told I was fine. I had taped a picture of Jesus over my bed and there were also lots of prayers. After the second day, I went to walk and I started to bleed, and the doctors quickly came, said my heart was leaking blood and water. I still have that shirt. He touched me at that time. Friends, your final storyteller of the night. She is a pulpit supply pastor in Central Arkansas at First Christian Church in Sherwood. Her 10 grandchildren and 2 dogs give her life. Put your hands together for your final storyteller, Reverend Donna Roundtree.
That's not awkward at all. I thought maybe you would lose some of your pizzazz by the time you got to this point. My son worked nights, and he had full custody of his 2-year-old son, James. So they spent a lot of time at our house, and I took a lot of care of James all the time. I have heard that there is a real connection between a grandparent and their first grandchild. And I thought maybe when I'm thinking about this story, our relationship was about to get a lot deeper. I'm standing in the kitchen. I'm cooking dinner. No, excuse me, I'm cooking breakfast. My son is upstairs asleep, and James is talking nonstop. So he's talking, and he stops mid-sentence, and he runs upstairs to check on his dad, and then he comes back down. Mama, Daddy's asleep. Yes, that's good. Then he talks about all these things that are important to him, and then he stops, and he runs upstairs to check on his dad, and they came back down. Mama, Daddy's still asleep. That's really good, James. Up he goes, down he goes, up, down, and he has this rhythm about it that I can count on until he doesn't. And then he did not come back in a timely manner, and I panicked. So I went to the bottom of the stairs and I called out to my son, "Wake up! I can't find James." And he tears down the stairs, ready to tear up that house, looking for that child. But me, I had always worried about the pond that was in the front yard. So I go there first. Sure enough, I find him face down in the middle of the pond. And my heart just stopped. And then it raced. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to get this child out of this pond? So I jumped in and I managed to get him over the big rocks that lined the whole pond and into the grass. And he was lifeless, he was blue, he was not breathing. And I thought, Lord, help me remember how to do CPR on a child. So I put my fingers together and I started doing little compressions and giving him breaths. Compressions, breaths, compressions, breaths. It became so rhythmic I could go back to praying. And this is when the miracle happened. So I looked down next to me. And there is this set of knees next to me with a white robe over them. And I didn't have to look up. I knew who those knees belonged to. I felt calm. I had no more fear. I knew everything was going to be all right. Now, this is where I think Christians have a problem. I didn't know everything was going to be all right because James was going to live. I knew that no matter what happened in this situation, God was going to be with me and see me through it to the end. And that's where I found my comfort. So my son comes running out of the house, and I say, call 911. He runs back in. While he is gone, James's little body starts spitting up water. And then my son comes back out. It was before cell phones. One of the 5 landlines was off the hook. And you know, those of you who can remember, you can't call out until you figure out which one's off the hook. So he finds it and he comes back out. Seems like an eternity till he gets back out there. And I say, he's breathing, but he's still unconscious. Stay with him until I can go get on some dry clothes. We all get in the car. My son is holding James. We drive down our long driveway and then a mile and a half or so up the road where the ambulance would be coming. And when I saw them, I pulled out in front of them and stopped. And we all got out of the car. The EMT comes around to meet us. He gets about 3 feet away from us, throws up his hands and says, they didn't say it was going to be a child. And I said, can you help him? And he took the child, and he and my son got in the ambulance, and I'm following them to the hospital, where there were some police officers there that had a lot of questions for me. And I told them everything that happened, and one of them said, yeah, we turned off your stove and found your wet clothes in the tub. And it occurred to me, they need to check for child endangerment and neglect. But they seemed to be just fine with all of my answers. This event happened 24 years ago. 5 years ago, this last August, I had the privilege of officiating at my grandson's wedding in our backyard. Praise God. I've always known that God was with me, but I have never, before that moment nor since, had a physical representation. But boy, did I need it then. Now, I don't know if your first grandchild is, the really special relationship. But I do think that while they're young, it's the events that happen, it's the things that you create together that make it a really special relationship, regardless of what number they happen to be. Thank you.
First, can we thank Nerlene Anderson, Kim Ardwin, Patricia Ball, David Beach, Ryan Pfeiffer, Donna Roundtree, Sarah Rudolph Pollard, Will you give yourselves a hand for being such an attentive, present audience? I want to thank all those Christian Church Disciples of Christ online for joining us. Thank the Great River region for saying yes. Right? True stories do change lives, right? You've been telling stories about your place in the family, our place in the family, about who we are, who we hope to be. We know it makes a difference, and then it prepares us for even more. And that's part of why we start with Story Hour. So this concludes, friends, thank you so much for joining us online. This concludes our Story Hour for tonight. We're going to continue, friends, in person here, but we're going to take a 5-minute break, a bio break or say hello to your friends. We're going to come back in 5 minutes, and we're going to get started and move along with our